Welcome to headlines. It is the midweek edition. Yeah, I know the week running so fast. Anyway, we are here to serve you some of the stories that made headlines on the daily newspapers. I am Charles Philip Owakalam. All right, we shall look at Blueprint newspaper first and then others. Leading with story on anti-corruption war. Sounds a bit funny actually. It says, dare us on our anti-corruption war. Federal government tells critics. And we have some kickers under that major headline. It says 1,400 convictions, 800 billion naira recovered loot to mean no mean feat. Insist probe of Magus EFCC and NDDC commitment to graft fight. Anyanwu threatens legal action against Akpabio. You get details on page 6. All right, under the major story, we see a picture of some defaulters arrested by the task force against non-compliance with COVID-19 guidelines for the commercial vehicle operators over non-wearing of face masks and carrying more than 2 passengers on the back seat. It happened at Kubwa Expressway in Abuja. Bottom strip stories. We've recovered $62 billion from oil companies in 1 year, says Malami. You see it on page 8. Daura opens up, says I don't dictate to Buhari. And that's on page 14. Idel Kabir, federal government declares Thursday and Friday public holidays, page 17. Otom's wife beats COVID-19, recovers after 25 days in isolation. That's on page 13. 24-year-old Ondo farmer docked for raping grandmother. This is despicable. It's on page 19. Okay, let's move up above the lead story. AFDB panel's verdict clears coast for additional second term. Coalition asks EFCC Malami to probe Tinubu and Fashola. That's on page 8. Meanwhile, the AFDB story is on page 6. Privatization. Senate summons UBA GMD over 41 billion Nitel fund, page 5. And lastly, Blueprint shows guidelines to remind us of some of the measures to take for against COVID-19, and it's titled Kick COVID-19 Out of Nigeria. So if you get Blueprint, you remind yourselves of some of the guidelines. Move straight to the Daily Times newspaper. While Nigeria is going downhill by Olu Faleye. While Nigeria is going downhill by Olu Faleye. You see it on page 2 of Daily Times newspaper. And above Daily Times masthead, that's the editorial, and it's on fraud at NDDC. Matters arising. That article is in front page but continued on page 12. Okay, let's come down. Same picture of defaulters like we saw in Blueprint newspaper. And then going down to bottom strip, corruption. Federal government recovered $63 billion in the last 1 year, says Malami. Story on page 2. And under judiciary, court issues bench warrant for National Assembly ex-clerk Omolori. You see it on page 3. And finally here on AFDB probe, how independent review panel exonerated additional. Get the story on page 3 of the Daily Times newspaper. And so I leave that, I go to Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust starts or leads with 2023 presidency. No need for zoning, Maman Daura says. And the kicker say we must stand firm on rotation, says Afenifere. Gentleman agreement shouldn't be jettisoned. That's coming from Niger Delta Group. Power shift remains party affair. And this is according to the ACF, Arewa Consultative Forum. Details on page 5. We see a burnt petroleum tanker that crashed into a ditch at the early hours of yesterday near Nikon Junction in Abuja. Bottom strip stories. We've recovered over 800 billion naira looted funds, says federal government. Story on page 6. Takai joins Shekarau in APC, page 30. Jailed ex-Air Marshal Mamu pays 0.5 million naira fine to regain freedom. That's on page 36. Okay, the rest of the story. Above the lead story, AFDB crisis. Review panel clears additional of wrongdoing. Page 17. African air traffic dips by 98% as IATA projects recovery by 2024. And finally, how I grew my customer base despite COVID-19. That's coming from female carpenter Hafsa. Okay, let's go to the next one. Leadership newspaper. Turn by turn presidency not working, says Maman Daura. He wants most competent Nigerian to succeed Buhari. Says his role in the Buhari presidency merely advisory. We see a picture of the Vice President Yemi Oshibajo and Chief of Staff to the President Ibrahim Gambari and Secretary to the Government of the Federal during the virtual meeting of President Muhammadu Buhari with Progressive Governors Forum at the Presidential Villa yesterday. Okay, beside the picture, anti-corruption war, no respecter of personality or party affiliation, says federal government. Recovers 800 billion naira loot. Convicts 1,400. Says no sacred cow in NDDC, NSITF and the EFCC. I facilitated $62 billion recovery from oil coils, says Abubakar Malami. Okay, coming down bottom strip stories. On 80th birthday, Gowon stores at Delusi at Deluis Road during civil war. COVID-19, inbound passengers to now undergo tests. Court orders arrest of ex-National Assembly clerk over diversion of 400 million vehicle fund. 400 million naira vehicle fund. Page 2, that's where it is. Dr. Stella's COVID-19 treatment claim unsubstantiated, says physicians. Getting on page 2. Uzodinma dissolves Imo Traditional Council. Court jails a Niger Delta Ministry director over 60 million naira fraud. Alright, let's go above lead story. Coast clear for additional as AFDB boss, yes. And the kicker there says PMB and Nigerians hail outcome of independent probe. The story is actually on front page, but most of it is continued on page 6. And finally, Eid al-Kabir, federal government declares Thursday and Friday public holiday. Page 12, that's where it is. And we will make a pause here and go on a quick break. We'll be back shortly. Please stay tuned.
Why do we fall ill? Is it possible to stay without falling ill? Is God interested in our health? Can we get access to cheaper health anywhere? Do you want tips on how to stay healthy?
Health Watch, a program to educate you viewers
on how to take care of your bodies and deal with different health-related issues.
Welcome back. If you're just joining, this is the newspaper headlines on ACNN TV. I will continue with Nigerian Pilot newspaper. I will start directly under the masthead of Nigerian Pilots. Transparency International urges National Assembly to deny Buhari further loans. You see that story on page 10 of Nigerian Pilot. Buhari's anti-corruption war alive, says Lai Mohammed. That's on page 5. And we have the lead story as my regrets. And it is coming from President Muhammadu Buhari. The kicker say Buhari says country's international ratings are yet to reflect in pockets of Nigerians. That he would only feel better as president when lives of citizens improve. Explains that economy not progressing as fast as he wants. But deliverables achieved so far give hope for a better tomorrow. Story on page 8. Coming down, court orders arrest of ex-National Assembly clerk Seni Omolori on page 5. Niger and Benin, I beg your pardon, owe Nigeria 1.2 billion naira for electricity, says presidency. Federal government declares Thursday and Friday public holidays. You see it on page 11. Nigeria recovered $62 billion from IOCs, says Malami, page 6. Neymar receives 109 stranded Nigerians deported from Mali, page 12. Mexican oil syndicate fails to frame top Nigerian officials in shady deals. Okay, and finally on page 31, COVID-19, federal government spent 15.8 billion naira on hazard allowances, says Chris Ngige. That will take us to the next one, People's Daily newspaper. Corruption war. Buhari won't cover up for anyone like PDP did. That's coming from the federal government. Says calls for president's resignation infantile. Alright, we have a picture of Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Obonnaya Onu, second left, receiving a compendium of Education, Science and Culture, ECOWAS, from Commissioner for Education, Science and Culture, ECOWAS, Professor Leopido Amado, at the second right. Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Science and Technology, Dr. Mohammed Bello Umar, left, and Head of Division ECOWAS, Dr. Roland Kuaku, by the right. During a courtesy visit by the Commissioner to the Minister office, it happened yesterday in Abuja. Bottom strip stories, Kogi West Court dismisses Melaye's appeal, upholds Ademi's victory. Page 4 it is. Eid al-Kabir, federal government declares Thursday and Friday public holidays, on page 4 still. And criminals behind Southern Kaduna killings. Criminals behind Southern Kaduna killings, says troops commander. Get it on page 6 of People's Daily newspaper. Let's go up above story. Southern Kaduna elders urge Buhari to intervene in killings. Southern Kaduna elders urge Buhari to intervene in killings. And finally, Malabu oil. Nigeria expecting $200 million from Netherlands and Switzerland, says Malami. Okay, that's all from People's Daily. I go straight into New Telegraph newspaper. $500 million loan. Reps summon ministers over rail contracts. Pact inhibits Nigeria's sovereignty in concession. Pages 3 and 26. Amechi, Fashola, Ahmed, Pantami to defend projects. Stop approving loans for Buhari. CIS LAC tells Senate. Work at the Third Mainland Bridge. And the bottom strip story: federal government recovers $62.5 billion arrears from oil firms. Okay, pessimistic outlook reduces life expectancy. That's on page 26. I take it again. Pessimistic outlook reduces life expectancy. Page 26 of New Telegraph newspaper. Okay, let's wrap this one up by moving up. Above lead story: Oshibajo's plane crash. Pilots lack landing techniques, says AIB. That's on page 5. List of lawmakers executing NDDC contracts, says Rep. Get it on page 27. Banks under spotlight as earnings season gets underway. Page 17. AFDB, Africa Development Bank. Independent panel clears additional of wrongdoing. See it on page 4. And finally, Sanusi backs CBN uniform exchange rate strategy. Sanusi backs CBN's uniform exchange rate strategy. Starting from front page, continued on page 5. FMDQ reports 16.47 trillion naira turnover in June. Page 18. All right, Nigerian Tribune newspaper is the next. Galaxy backbone. That's the lead story. Reps uncover clauses ceding Nigeria's sovereignty to China. Reps uncover clauses ceding Nigeria's sovereignty to China. Probe implementation of $849 million rail project. China may not sign $5.3 billion Ibadan-Kaduna rail loan if probe continues, Amechi warns, and it's on page 2. Explosion in Lagos, 2 killed. Vehicles, shops destroyed, page 26. And we have pictures of scenes of the explosion at the Ajao estate in Lagos State. Okay, it happened on Tuesday. Continuing with the stories beside the picture: Malibu Oil, Nigeria expecting $200 million from Netherlands and Switzerland. Page 2, that's according to AGF. Reps summon CBN, Pencom, others over 300 billion naira misappropriated fund. Query Labour Minister over 7.8 billion naira bailouts and Shopee funds. And below the unending debate over hydroxychloroquine as medical doctors debunk US-based doctors' claim. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube pull down video. No specific cure yet, says NCDC. Alright, it's on page 4. Above masthead, AFDB, excitement as additional gets not guilty verdict on page 6. Ex-pension boss Maina released from Kuje prison, page 30. Court issues warrant of arrest against ex-National Assembly clerk Omolori. That's on page 8. And below the masthead, Ondo Guba, Akeredolu picks Ayedatiwa as running mate. That's on page 8. Why Oshibajo helicopter crashed in Kogi according to the AIB. That's on page 28. And finally, on Nigerian Tribune, defection, Dogara betrayed my trust, says Bauchi governor. Get it on page 4 of Tribune newspaper. Okay, the final one with me, the Business Day newspaper. Business Day newspaper. Nigerian banks face biggest revenue drop since 2016. This article is featured on front page, but the rest is on page 29. Okay, we don't have much on front page of Business Day here, okay, Nigeria's Disease Control Agency fails own 2 million COVID-19 test targets. Experts say failure means country could stay longer with pandemic. The story is on front page as well, continued on page 9. Last one, Fashola assures motorists of improved traffic situation on 3rd Mainland Bridge. That's on page 2 of Business Day newspaper, and that's the last one actually. That's the end of today's edition. I feel like telling someone out there never to lose hope. Do not let your faith wither. Remain steadfast in Christ, who is the sure foundation and the anchor of our soul. Thank you for watching. I remain Charles Philip Owakolam. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye-bye.